Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video we are back working on my 1974 Corvette, and that is because in last video with this thing, we took it out to the drag strip for the very first time after weeks of trying to get it ready, and of course, it had a terrible problem with bogging and sputtering really aggressively, having no power under load. So bad. No power at all. I drove this thing about 80 miles about round trip that day, and it was flawless cruising, but once it came to actually, dumping the clutch and just letting her eat, she didn't want any part of it. But this thing still managed to run a 15-second pass in the quarter mile at 96 miles an hour, running absolutely horrible, like literally slower than like pulling away from a light normally. Like it had no power, but still managed to clear up top on one run and give us that best time we had. But that proved that this car could potentially be a high 12 to mid 13-second car in the quarter mile, which is pretty dang impressive. In today's video, we're going to be trying to fix that so we could go back out to the drag strip and see what this thing is actually capable of. So the initial thoughts were maybe the distributor, but then we kind of did experiments on the way home, and any throttle like quarter just easing into it, it ran fine. We had it rev up all the way to like 4 grand and it was super smooth. But then once we punched it and then secondaries opened, the thing would start sputtering like crazy. So what I want to go ahead and do first is just a couple things that I can do without spending any money, and that is check the fuel filters in the carburetor and see what those look like. And then also, a friend of mine gave me a brand new rotor cap to throw in and see if it helps at all. Now I was thinking that maybe it is the fuel pump, but this thing has constant fuel pressure. You can probably hear it right now. Like, it has constant fuel pressure. When the car is not under load, it free revs perfectly, so that makes me think maybe it's not the distributor and maybe fueling. I don't know, I keep going back and forth. But we're going to try these couple things first and see if that helps. And if not, then I might go ahead and start diving deeper into the fueling system and maybe go ahead and like just change out the distributor. And I did ohm out the wires not too long ago, and they all checked out perfectly. And these are really good wires. These are not cheap wires by any means. It has brand new spark plugs gapped to what this engine calls for. So I don't know, we'll see. Today's video is definitely gonna be a bit of experimenting, and hopefully we could figure this out, because it is no good running like this. So that being said, let's get to work. Guys, so I just finished taking off the fuel rails and everything, and the filters are supposed to be in here. I even checked this side, but there are no filters in this carburetor. But one thing I did notice when I took off all these little plugs is sand. Now, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see really well, but there was little tiny sand sediments that fell all out of this thing, and some nasty looking fuel. Actually, I think there's some, yep, I can see it. If you come around on this side, when I took out this plug, all of that sediment came out of that plug. That's a lot. And if this thing has no filters, this thing could be plugged up in all sorts of ports. So what I think I'm going to do is just go ahead and pull off the carb and check it out. I've never actually opened up this carburetor ever, so this thing could just be really clogged up. That would be good, because that is a quick and free fix as long as all the gaskets stay together. So the carburetor is off, and as you can see, that is all of the sand that came out of those plugs. So this carburetor's gotta be definitely plugged up somehow. But in here is really clean, which is good to see. No like carbon buildup or soot or anything like that. Let's go ahead, dive into this thing. I'm gonna go one side at a time, and let's see how this thing looks. Alright guys, so I have the carburetor all slapped back together. This thing was not dirty at all. The only place that was dirty was these areas here. And other than that, the rest of the float bowls and the jets and everything were super duper clean. And the jet size, which I never knew on this, the rears are 78 and the front is 70. But I have this thing all pieced back together now. But what I'm going to go ahead and do before fire this thing up is change out the rotor cap. And then we'll go ahead, fire it up, and see if there's any difference at all. Alright guys, so the new cap is all installed with everything inside. I did go ahead and just sand down with some super fine sandpaper and just clean up some contacts inside the distributor. But I got everything back on. So what we're going to go ahead and do is crank this thing up, let it build up some fuel pressure, check for leaks. I tried to maintain the gaskets, life as good as I could. But we'll just see. I kind of just pieced this thing back together just because I really just want to test it. But let's see if there's any difference. Let's crank this thing up for a bit. Oh, well, it fired up. Alright, well, somehow it ran. I think that's just with residue carb cleaner in the bowls, but let's see if it built fuel pressure already. Yep, it did. We'll check the rears. Yep, there we go. That's why I don't think the fuel pump's bad, just because it builds fuel pressure so quick, and like it constantly has good squirting action. So, I don't know, let's see. Let's just let this thing run. Timing is good. So this thing seems to be running pretty good. I just sprayed like the base and everything around the carb to check for any vacuum leaks, and it didn't rev up at all. It didn't change RPM, so no leaks there, no fuel leaks. The timing is set. It's perfect. It seems to be running good. It's super responsive on the throttle. It has good fuel pressure now. The squirters or everything are acting as they should. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead, throw on the air cleaner, and take this thing out on the road, and I'll be able to tell right away if it's changed or not, because anything past quarter throttle, it would start doing that crazy shake. So let's check this out. Alright guys, so I've been driving around for a bit now and cruising around. It feels great. It feels perfect, like there's nothing wrong. But I think it still has the same problem. I'll demonstrate right now. I don't even need a floor, but just laying into it just enough. Ready? Here we go. Not fixed at all. Better, it actually can push through it a little bit, but definitely not fixed. Alright guys, so we're actually back here about a week later from the last clip, and as you can see, we have a few parts in. So cleaning the carb didn't help. Nothing we've done so far has helped. So what I went ahead and did is ordered a new fuel pump and a brand new distributor. I believe it's actually the same exact one that was on here already, but I got a new distributor just because when the problem occurs, the tachometer starts like glitching and like swinging all around, and the tachometer obviously plugs into the distributor. So I just went ahead and bought a whole new one. I also put new plug wires on this just to see if it helped, and it didn't, so I just went ahead and returned them. And I also already ohmed out all these plug wires. They were good anyway, but I went ahead just to see, so I bought them, put them on, didn't work, and just returned them. So got a new fuel pump as well, just to see if maybe it's starving for fuel, which I doubt, but we'll see. I'll start with the distributor. We'll give it a try, see if it feels any different. If not, we'll go ahead and then do the fuel pump, and if that doesn't work, then we're gonna have to do some more deep diving. Guys, so I have the distributor all installed. Everything fit really well. What I did is I pulled the cylinder 1 spark plug, make sure it's on top dead center, as you can see right down there. Made sure that the rotor was pointing at cylinder 1, so we know that it's timed right. What I'm going to go ahead and do is fire it up, see if it would fire it up on how I have it right now. And I have my timing light here, and we'll start setting the timing. Timing's probably way off. Yeah, that's way off. Let's try that. Woo. It's got that chop. I'll let it warm up so it can actually idle, and then we'll go ahead and go under the hood and start timing it. Alrighty guys, so we are going to go ahead, take this out on the road and see how it feels. It seems to be running really, really good right now. Real test is going to be the street trap. So let's see how this thing does on a warm start. I did go ahead and cut it off after it warmed up a bit. As you can see, there is a little bit of temperature in it as it goes up a little bit, but let's go ahead and see. Oh yeah.
Eventually.
So as I was just pulling in, I noticed something on one of these gauges, and well, it's the one that you don't want to see something wrong in. So I'm going to go ahead, fire it up really quick. But let's just see. Yeah, this thing has like no oil pressure, and it's at 0. It's 40. It's never done that. Oh no. Tell me this thing is blown up. So guys, that hesitation is probably the engine locking up. Then again, maybe the gauge is just acting up. I just checked the oil level's perfect. I'm gonna let this thing cool down. I mean, even if the oil is thin, it's only like 60 degrees out, so it really shouldn't be too thin, the oil, and from getting super hot. I mean, this is the same oil I've ran in it. I mean, not the same exact oil, but the same thickness oil I've ran in it ever since I've had it, and never had any oil pressure issues at all. But I definitely don't want to run it anymore with that oil pressure, because at that oil pressure, if it's true, it will blow up soon. This is not ideal. Alrighty guys, so I've been thinking, and I'm not even gonna bother running this thing anymore, just because it's not knocking. The engine sounds perfect, but if it is actually having low oil pressure, what I'm going to try and do is try and save it. I'm going to order a new oil pump, new rod bearings, and go underneath the car, drop the oil pan, and do it from underneath. I should be able to. It's very annoying, but I should be able to. And if not, then the engine's coming out once again. So probably going to be a bit since this thing will be out on the road again. It just absolutely sucks, but what are you going to do? I do not want to risk it. Being that it's not knocking or anything like that right now. It's turning over freely. So with that being said, our attempt to try and get this thing to run right has been discovering that it's about to blow up. So I guess that's kind of a good thing that we caught it before it actually did. But with that being said, I'm going to be ending off this video here. I'm going to get a ton of parts ordered and just start planning on, I guess, rebuilding this engine. It sucks that we just had it out too. Probably should have done it when it was out, but it was running so perfect before. And for quite a while up until, well, when we went drag racing. So I might have heard it then, but who knows. Alright guys, so we are back here a little while later, and as you can see behind me, I got some boxes. And, well, I'll give you guys a hint. I have an oil pan gasket, and that can only mean one thing. And the car's on jack stands. So what I went ahead and did is I went ahead and just pulled the oil pan off camera, just because you guys have seen me do it quite a few times, and I just wanted to get down to what is going on. And when I went under there, immediately I felt the oil pump, and it might not look like a lot on camera, but I'll play the clip right now. So as you guys can see, there's definitely a lot of play in that oil pump. You could certainly hear it. And if we go ahead right over here and look at the cap that the oil pump bolts into, that is the threads to the pump. So when I first took it out, it was all cracked. You know, it was still pretty much intact, so like none of the big chunks or anything really went into the engine. But once I took it out, I literally like put my finger in here and then it just fell apart. So that oil pump was not well secured at all. I mean, this is all garbage. There's no saving that. And so what I went ahead and did is, in here I have a new rear main cap, and as you can see the difference, this is much better. This thing is basically brand new GM original cap, so definitely pretty stoked on that. And another thing I noticed is that the old one didn't have this copper gasket that mates between that metal surface and the metal surface on the oil pump, which as you can see I have a brand new one right here. This bolt also is no longer functional. I mean, it probably could be, but I'm not going to reuse it because it's all marred up a little bit. So I got a brand new just ARP oil pump stud that is much nicer and will definitely have better clamping force than that bolt. And another thing I did was I looked at some of the bearings. Right here we have one of the main bearings. It still looks pretty good. No really deep scratches or anything like that. The thrust bearings on the side still look really good. The thrust bearings on the side still look really good. And then right over here we have, I just pulled one of the rod bearings, and this looks absolutely perfect. No thinning, deep scores. It just looks really good along with the cap. So honestly, I was contemplating doing the main bearings and rod bearings underneath the car, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to send it. And I have done that before on the MG when we first got it. Obviously it didn't work, and then that's when we took apart the entire engine, full hand-built car. You know, if you guys haven't seen that, definitely go check it out. That car runs awesome. But this engine doesn't knock at all. I really think that when the oil gets hot, it just escapes from the cap and the oil pump mating surface and just leaks out. So I'm just hoping that, you know, any running it did with not much oil pressure, it didn't cause any damage. I mean, based off the bearings I checked, they both look really good. I'm feeling each rod bearing and there's no play. So I think this is really what we need. I think if it did run any longer with how it was, it definitely would have blown up, that's for sure. Alrighty guys, so I've just gone ahead and just cleaned up everything and got everything ready to go back inside of the engine. So now I'm going to go underneath and just get to work, make sure everything gets properly torqued down, and yeah, hopefully get this thing back up and running. Alright, so underneath the car, as you can see, the crank rod journal looks really good, and then over here, the crank main itself also looks really good. The oil pump all mounted up. Everything looks really good. I have the oil pickup tube installed too. I had to get a special tool for that to hammer that thing in, but it's all good. The angle is set. The little drive shaft for it is also good with its new seal connector between the two, so everything looks good there. Then up in there, as you can see, we have that new copper crush washer, so hopefully keep a nice seal unlike it was before. So now what we have to do is put on the oil pump. I'm just gonna go ahead and clean off the surface, not too dirty, just a little bit oily, and then put on the oil pan, not the oil pump. Put some gasket maker on the corners of it so it doesn't leak, and then we should be good. Finally just finished putting on the oil pan, all tightened down, but I'm just gonna let this thing sit for the rest of today, and then tomorrow we're gonna try and fire this thing up. Hopefully no leaks, and hopefully it actually runs and has good oil pressure. And then I have to go ahead and just put together the steering rack again, just lift it back up, and then we'll put it back down on the ground. I could do that right now, but I'm gonna wait just in case we have any leaks and I have to pull the oil pan again. Hopefully not. But with that being said, I will catch you all tomorrow when it's time to fire this thing up. Alright guys, welcome back. We are here 24 hours later, and the gasket maker on the oil pan should be fully cured. So what we're going to go ahead and do is put in some oil and a little bit of oil treatment. Has zinc, which is good for these older engines, and then try the first start. And hopefully we have oil pressure. What I am going to do before starting it is give it just a few quick cranks, get the oil, pump up, all lubricated up. I did prime it before putting it in, but now that it'll start, picking up oil, we're going to make sure that it will pick up oil and, the crankshaft and everything re-lubricated before we go ahead and really fire it up. So let me just pour in this oil quick, and then we'll go ahead and give this a shot. Alright, so we are all filled up on oil. Looks good on the dipstick. We have no leaks underneath. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, like I said before, is hop in the car for the first time in a very long time and give this thing a couple cranks. I'm not going to go ahead and pedal it either because it doesn't have any fuel pressure and I don't want to start. But I'm going to keep my eyes on here, give it a couple slow cranks, and wait for it to start building. Nothing yet. It's gonna take a while. It's definitely been sitting for a bit. There we go. Heck yeah. 40 pounds on crank. Give it a couple more cycles. There we go. All right, now let's build oil pressure. Let me check for leaks. All right, still looking good. The pan was already looking like that. It's kind of dirty. Letting this thing run, doing a few heat cycles just to see, let it run, check for leaks, let it run over and over again. But it's definitely been running for a good minute now, and we are still having great oil pressure at idle. Everything sounding good up front. I have this thing been here idling. It's been idling perfect, sounding really, really good. Sounds real good coming out the back. It's been a while since I've heard that. As you can see, we are building temp, still holding great oil pressure at idle, about 800 RPMs or so. So I think it's time we put this thing on the road and, see how she feels. Alright, we are cruising at cruising speed. We got about 60 pounds, which is great. It's feeling real good. Guys, so the Corvette feels absolutely amazing. It has great oil pressure. It is feeling really, really smooth. I rolled into it a few times and it didn't hesitate once. So it's definitely feeling really, really happy, which I am stoked about. I'm not gonna go crazy on it right now, just because it has a brand new oil pump. I don't want to break that thing and we're just hounding on it. But I'm sure there really isn't an oil pump break-in process, but I just like going kind of easy on the stuff, letting it break in, let the new oil pan gasket seal nicely, let the new rear main seal nicely, and all that. But so far this thing seems to be back up and running really good. So super stoked on that. But anyway guys, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Definitely stay tuned for more updates with the Corvette, and hopefully we can get back out to the drag strip and run times that this thing should be running. So anyway guys, with that being said, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Find my social media so you'll be in the outro of this video, Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share your friends with the channel.